been like 2 times over time with when you do the LIA group call.
Yep.
I had a hard time looking for, because I always wasn't around for those calls. I was always looking for recording. And whenever you came on the call, there was like 3 recordings because because
Yeah.
the system doesn't allow you to do overtiming, which is one recording.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real problem I have, man. It's a real problem. It's a blessing and a curse. I like to talk, I suppose. And I also feel a bit of like a moral obligation. Like if I'm on a call and someone has a question, what am I going to say? Oh, I'll answer this next time. Like that doesn't sit well with me. But yeah, we've had a few 4-hour plus Monday coaching calls, which is that's a long time. That's a long call.
I respect the dedication.
Thank you, brother. Well, for you guys that are just tuning in, we're joined here by Kevin. Kevin's a LIA member, a land investor. Kevin, where do you live in the world? Are you in California?
I'm located in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought you were in the Bay Area. Seattle, Washington, is it gray and gloomy, or is it somewhat nice now?
It is very nice.
Okay. What are we talking, like 60s, 70s?
Yeah, 70s plus sun. Pretty consistent now. We get 3 months of sunshine, that's it.
But I will say, dude, the summer in the Pacific Northwest, my grandparents live in Eugene, Oregon. It is the best. Like a PNW summer is amazing. Like I would love to just be there for that window. But anyway, I'm excited to have you guys here. For you guys that don't know what we do on these calls, we're essentially going to, I guess, grill Kevin on his journey to some extent. It's going to give you guys kind of a proof of concept, maybe some context on the ups and downs of what it looks like to run a multiple 6-figure land investing business. And then we're going to flip the script. Kevin's going to grill me. We'll take real-time issues that are in his business today and try to add something valuable to it and maybe get some of them corrected if we can. If you guys like this kind of content, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. Welcome, say a little welcome message here in the chat. Say, what up, Kevin? Drop a little love in there. Share this with a friend too. If you've got someone that's a land investor thinking about getting into land, let's share it with a friend. Anyways, man, so we're almost at the midpoint of 2025, which is kind of crazy. Some people are having the best year of their life ever in the land business. Some people are having a harder time. So what's it been like for you, man? How's 2025 been so far?
It's been excellent. And I think there are truly a lot of credit needs to go to LIA and especially Rylan. So it goes back to the reason why I was volunteered to join LIA. It was one of the requirements to be in part of the deal that I reached out to initially Justin, who put the deal together by talking to you, Sumner, and Rylan. So we're able to put together a customized kind of coaching package. And
let's let people know what that is. I'll just explain too really quickly. So Kevin joined LIA, but one of the stipulations that he wanted was, hey, I want some one-on-one coaching. And so he got access to working with Rylan for how long was that? 3 months of coaching?
I think it was 6 months. It was 6 calls, undetermined timeline.
Okay. So 6 calls spaced out however you'd like. And at this point, we really only allow, I would say, 1 to 3 people a year to do one-on-one coaching. I haven't done it in a few years. I used to do it myself. And you're one of those rare cases where it's like, yeah, I can tell this guy's legit. Like he's already got momentum. And when I hear things like people are talking about wanting to build a business, et cetera, like that's the vision, usually a good fit for one-on-one coaching. On the flip side, you get a lot of people that are starting at square one where one-on-one coaching just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, you got to work with Rylan, which at this point, I would say dude, I don't know if there's anyone else at his level currently. I don't know if you know anyone that's running a flipping operation that's quite at that scale. Do you?
I don't. Also, I like to talk about why I chose Rylan.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I think I just came across a YouTube video of him presenting a like how his business looked like in Vegas. I wasn't in that conference, so I was just looking at the snapshot of how he structured his business. And one of the core reasons why I chose him was I knew he traveled a ton, and he delegated most of the segments of his business. And I just thought that I want to be coached by someone who's not just making a ton of money, but also having that end result where I want to be. So I was like, I'm not signing up for mentor one-on-one with someone who works 100 hours a week. I don't really care how much money they make. It's not really
Yeah.
aligned. So I knew like every, every time I saw Ryan popping up, he's traveling somewhere, and he's in completely different time zones than US, and he's still pulling off uh, really strong results
Yeah.
with his team week
Yeah.
in, week out, and he doesn't work a ton.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to learn how to delegate from this guy, and I don't think he's doing anything that's extraordinary. That's something only he can pull off. He's a system guy, so I was like, if I just replicate what he's doing, I can probably get really consistent result.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, one of the things I want to share is that he's he's CRM. He used Follow Boss, and one of the things I was really really surprised into CRM, and he showed me at the time he's screen sharing. The only customized field he has was APN. So
Right. Yeah.
it's like I don't know how many, like 30 to 50. I don't know exactly how many leads he gets to push to CRM, but his CRM is busy, and he only has one customized field. It's called APN. His
That's so
business,
fun.
he built a very, I think he put a lot of work into like simplicity, and
Yeah.
that's one of the core reasons why he can scale. And that actually taught me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, so funny. The folks that are never quite getting the results they want, I found a one-to-one correlation with how much emphasis they put on CRMs, which is just like very interesting. And the people that I find that are like wonderfully successful in lands, because at the end of the day, like the mechanics of the land business are like pretty much the same for almost all land investors. We all run a very similar business model. We know that. We've all got roughly the same amount of time in a day. So it's like, well, where's the delta in results? And it's just like prioritizing the right things, you know? And I think if you look at Ryland's business, he's done a lot of things really well. But the best thing he's done is he's a lead freak. That guy knows how to generate leads, like at a very, 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 very high level. And so if you can solve for the right things, everything starts to kind of flow from there. Yeah, it's just a good reminder. I know people that run seven-figure land investing businesses with a spreadsheet, like not even a CRM. Probably not recommended, but yeah, focusing on what matters. Let's talk about that really quickly too. Where were you? I know you've been in land for about 2 years. So where were you prior to joining LIA, working with Ryland, and then how did you get in this business? Well, I'll start with the first one and then move to the origin story.
So actually, before land, I was flipping houses in Seattle during my college years.
Go.
Um, that was back in 2017, all the way until late 2019. I finished up my last flip. I was researching about tax lien investings, but I came across Mark Podolsky's book and became one of the many uh,
Yeah.
students who initially came across the land business. So I ran that business for about 2 years, and I
Yeah.
built a portfolio of notes. But at the end of that point, I realized it's very frictional to self close on the buy and sell, and have to wait forever for that
Mhm.
capital to recover by $100 to $300 a month. It's just very hard
Yeah.
to scale. Um, and then I began experimenting with title close and cash
Mhm.
flips during the 2023 and 24. I believe I joined LIA just
End of 2024, I think, right?
correct. Yeah.
Fall time.
Yeah.
Dude, it's funny you bring up Mark Podolsky's book. So I was just on the Land Insight CEO call with Ryland and Kyle. And literally like 5 minutes before that call ended, we just went on a rant about that book, Dirt Rich, because for so many people, it was the top of the funnel and kind of including myself, you know, and it's not like a phenomenal book. It's like parables and stories kind of. But it's really funny that you bring that up. And actually, I'll tease it. We are releasing a book ourselves, very, very different than Dirt Rich. So I'm releasing what I would call essentially like a land investing textbook. So like take all of the concepts in LIA when we talk about market selection, acquisitions, just the whole kit and caboodle, who to hire, building a team, all of that, and then compress it and then give real world examples. So there's going to be a whole entire deal library in there. And it's pretty much finished with copy. It's in the design phase and it's going to be like a real printed physical book. So I'm excited to release that. And hopefully it's a 180 from Dirt Rich. But again, for a lot of folks, Dirt Rich was the origin story. And dude, just from a marketing perspective, this is probably a tangent. And this is very much the same for direct mail. Isn't it interesting how like some forms of marketing just have so much like authority and trust instilled in them? Like if I read Dirt Rich as a PDF, I don't think I would have felt the same connection with Mark, even though I didn't join Land Geek. But books are potent, and direct mail is very much the same way, where there's just a lot of trust instilled in it, which I find pretty interesting.
Yeah. I've heard directly from one of the educators in the land space who's not Mark Podolsky.
Yeah.
He said one of the few things he was really impressed about Mark is that he converted a lot of students. He's
big time
podcast and
well, I think that book has a lot to do with it. I tried to reverse engineer like the reviews and the ranking on Amazon, and it's definitely sold tens of thousands of copies, maybe like 100,000, which is huge for a book. That's crazy, especially for a self-published book. Dude, you and I have a similar origin story. Again, I didn't go through Land Geek. I literally hacked it together, but I pretty much played out that system, building the finance portfolio. And, it's an interesting model because on paper, it looks amazing. Like the spreadsheet math looks so cool. You're making 1,000% return on some of these deals. And you might be able to attest to this. There is literally nothing passive about it. Like even when we just think about the management of the note, that is not passive. Like I don't know how big your note portfolio was, but it was a full-time job managing that note or those notes. Now, I think at our height, we probably had about 250 notes in our portfolio. But the real crux of it was the self-closing. I drove myself crazy with the self-closings. In 2021, we acquired like 242 properties, all self-closing. And you can imagine how insane that is. So how big did you build that note portfolio? And what was your experience building that out?
Well, maintaining the notes is like being packed to death by 1,000 chickens. Like, I think 90% of borrowers, they're pretty passive. Like, all the payments always gets drafted on time and they don't talk to you ever. And the loan just paid off. But there's 10% of borrowers that's 90% of work. They're always late and they always have an excuse and they always want you to refund that late payment fee that's designed to keep them on check. So I built that note portfolio to be around, I think, 75 properties, and we have about $15,000 to $18,000 coming in at a time. But because I stopped creating new loans, now I think we have about $8,000 coming in every month. Covers the overhead of the business, but it's not something that's sustainable. It's going to dwindle down to zero in the next 2 years.
Well, that's the tough thing too about that model is like you never get those big liquidity events. So it's like it's really hard to grow based off of that note income because you're never getting that $50,000, $100,000 rip that comes in that you can reinvest. And so I hit a spot where I would either need outside money or I needed a completely different strategy. And that was really the origin of LIA, because I just tried to apply that low dollar flipping playbook to bigger deals. And of course, it did not work at all. So then I just went through the school of hard knocks. And that's really the origin story of LIA. The one thing that I will say, and this is, I feel like people kind of sleep on this strategy, and it's one that we still, I say we should probably get 10 to 15 deals a year that fall into this category. And that's like mid-market owner financing. I'm actually a big fan of that. With a deed of trust, we get typically great borrowers. There's a lot of liquidity on that note, so I can sell that note if I want to. We're usually 20 to 25% down, 12% interest or so, 5 to 7 years. And they're great borrowers. And as a percentage, we capture way more as a down payment on those deals than we do on the small dollar deals. And there's kind of like a supply issue. Like if you look at mid-market properties, they almost never have owner financing, very rarely. And then when you go to, Costilla County, literally every property is owner financing. It's a race to the bottom. At one point, we were doing $1 down for our properties. And so for me, like we still offer owner financing on pretty much any property that we take down where we hold title. And those have been like phenomenal notes to us. So I do like that as a play. And there's so much more money coming into the land space now that people will gobble those up, 75, 80% of its value. Do you do any owner financing on bigger deals now, or is it all cash flips?
So far, I've been doing all cash flips.
Okay.
Just to touch on the owner financing on those mid-market properties, are you still using agents to market them? And if so, like, are you paying the agent commission, because that's a big chunk of the initial cost?
Yeah, it definitely becomes tricky. So if we have stuff that's like $15,000 to $25,000, somewhere in that category that we know it's going to be an owner finance play, we'll typically just do like a flat fee, or we'll just kind of try to drive traffic to our website and sell it through there. Like we still probably get, if you factored it out over a year, about one sale a month from our website. Sometimes we don't go 3 months without one. We get a bunch. So we are able to drive traffic from there. We built a pretty big buyers list over the years. We probably have like 3,000 to 4,000 people on our buyers list. We still get traffic from like land flip and things like that. We canceled our land.com subscription. For the ones that we are going to list with an agent, though, what we try to do is have a compensation that's just a flat rate if we owner finance it. So not as a percentage. We'll just pay you $2,500 or whatever it is as a flat rate. Now, if you don't discuss that up front, you get screwed. Like your whole entire down payment goes to paying them a commission. So it's got to be discussed up front. But yeah, for those, and I would say too, for like those $15,000 to $25,000 deals in general, if we don't have a great realtor relationship, usually the realtors that are willing to take those deals on typically suck anyways. So we're really not missing out on much there.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, dude. So let's zoom out. That was 2 years ago. Land Geek, land flipping model with the owner financing play, built it up to 80 notes or so. Give me like just the top down view of the business today. I know it looks probably totally different.
Yeah, so we're 100% using title company to buy and using agents to sell. We don't do any dispo marketings. So I actually put together a dashboard of the recent 2 months. Can I share my screen with you?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Click on the bottom, that present button.
Okay, let me try this.
I love it, man. He came with data. I love looking at some data. That people are going to enjoy this too.
Yeah, something that I also want to give credit to LIA is that, so I tried to hire an AM this year, and the person I ended up hiring with is just from one message from LIA. I just send the job description in LIA's forum, and I got 2 guys message me. I called 2 guys, vetted them out, ended up hiring one of the guys.
Wow.
And the thing about this guy is he told me that he sold $3 million of RV in his previous job. And the second place wasn't even close. The second place, I think, is 1.8 million. So he's like the top performers
Yeah.
in his previous work. And I spoke with his boss, and his boss like, I didn't want to let him go, but he just didn't like the corporate environment. And I was ecstatic because I was like, there's no corporate environment here. I can't even create that one. It's not
Yeah.
on the culture. Everybody want flexibility here, and if they do their job, they don't have to they don't have to show up for work. If I don't care,
Yeah. Yeah.
just do your thing. I like that. Like, so what I did was coach him on the land side of the business and told him, here are the disposition strategies we do. Here's how you close deals. Here's Google form how you generate contracts. The guy called 3 days of my code list.
Mm.
These are the people that we sent offer, but we never got a response.
Mm-hmm.
So we pushed them to the CRM. I think there were about a few hundred people. I don't remember, but the guy just cold call 3 days, pulled out a deal out of the code list, and the deal is expected to net us, I think, 50 to 70,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So right then I was like, this is my guy. And so it's been a month, and this is all the deal. This is, I think, all the deal besides one. It's all like it's all generated by him. One of the
Wow.
deals came through mail, but you can see like he generated 300,000 pipeline profit in one.
Wow.
This is just in 1 month he's with us.
Wow, dude. Let me just I just want to have a quick tangent on that for people. Super freaking cool. And I'm gonna hopefully hook some people up here on this call with a bit of a tidbit that's going to relate to this. First off, what's interesting is if you look at my land business, you look at LIA and you look at Land Insights, my secret, we probably hired through that, I don't know, maybe close to a dozen people. My secret has been hiring through our content. Like, that's made my hiring process so much easier. It's free. We get these eyeballs for free. It's curated. They know us. They might have some trust there. They understand how we operate. And usually these folks are like pretty down, like mission orientated. Like, they want to be a part of what we're working on. And there's just a lot of excitement there. That has been my biggest hack for hiring. Like, it's actually changed my life. I've been able to hire people that are otherwise, I just don't think I'd be able to find people that are that quality that would trust us to work with us. So that's been huge. Now, that obviously relates to me, but how does that relate to folks watching this? Well, if you go inside of our Discord, I think there's like, I don't know, 2,400 people or 2,000 people, something like that. I would say out of that 2,000 people, dude, there's probably 300 of them that are like actively running a legit business. There's probably like another 200 that are like side hustling, doing a few deals a year. And then there's a lot of people in there that want to be a part of land, but they're either not an operator themselves, so they're not going to start the business. They don't have the money to start the business, or they don't have the money for education. And they just kind of want like a 6-month, 12-month internship where they can learn and they can go jump off on their own. We've had I'd say a dozen LIA members, maybe a little bit more than a dozen LIA members that have used the community as a hiring funnel. And anyone can do that. I don't care if you're in LIA or outside of LIA. You guys can use that community to find top grade talent, like really, really good people. And it always blows my mind that the kinds of people that we hire want to work with me. And I think a lot of it has to do with the distribution through our content. So that's a nugget, man. That's really, really cool. Kay's got a question for you, if you don't mind sharing. What's the comp structure for your AM?
He has a base salary plus 5% commission on the deal he closed.
Okay, perfect. So let's walk through it. What is the team structured like today? You've got the AM. What else do you have? What else do you have going on the team?
I got a full-time comber.
Okay.
He does my list, and he's been with me for 2 years, so it took him a long time to really learn the comping and list management side of things. I think comping is one of the most dynamic things that it's hard to teach. You just have to have a lot of reps.
Yeah.
So he's been with me. He's from Philippines. I got another guy from the Philippines. He's my EA.
Gotcha.
But I have he's not like a traditional EA. I just put him in operations and whatever gaps I can fill him in. He's doing some TC, some systemized optimization. He's auditing my texter.
Wow.
Yeah, he previously audited. He led the SMS team,
Yep.
and under I actually was hiring an SMS guy, and he jumped on the interview. I asked him what his superpower is. He tells me without any hesitation. He said, Kevin, my superpower is multitasking. I was like, I love
I
that.
don't know if that would scare me or if that would be encouraging.
With the right seat, I think he's really
Yeah.
capable, and he has
Yeah.
attention to details and all that quality. So I was like, I'm gonna hire you as my EA.
Yeah.
So he's doing all kinds of operations right now,
Okay.
and I also have a part-time TC person. She's based out of the States, and one of the core reasons why I hire her and I hire a US-based TC was Ryland's suggestion that TC needs to sign your legal documents, and international VA just can't do a full cycle process with TC if they can't sign documents. Yeah, she gets OPV, agent OPV for us. She signed all documents. She negotiates dispo offers. It's great. She just she countered 2 deals this week, and she got them accepted. I was playing pickleball at that time. I didn't know. And she said, "Yeah, we secured the contract. I counter at this number, and they accepted it." I was like,
Wow.
"Great." Yeah. So yeah, she's really fully autonomous, and yeah, I'm really glad. It's not a position where that it's not a position that allowed us to 10 times our output in terms of profit, but the amount of time saved, it's amazing. It allowed me to spend more time outside of work and also work on something that's truly scalable with the team. Also, yeah, also we got a couple of contractors, but I think that's the core leadership team. We got a gal from can't remember, Central America, and she manages my GeekPay notes. When the borrower emails, she always answer, and she calls the borrowers, and she pays property taxes and so on and so forth. Really glad to have this team around. So that's kind of my team structure right now. And when we finish up telling my side of the story, I was actually planning to ask some questions about lead manager, because right now I think my AM is near capacity, and I was thinking how to structure lead manager right between him and the texter.
Okay. Yeah, we can hit on that. Couple of things I'll add for that. Kudos. I mean, building a team is an entirely different skill set than building a land business initially. And honestly, most people really struggle with it. Like most of us just aren't familiar with managing people, finding good talent, building team culture. And it sounds like you've done a pretty good job there. So kudos. And I think it's what makes this business fulfilling and fun, is working with a team. Like, to me, that is why I'm still doing this. I just love the people I work with. What's funny is like the 2 moments where I was like, oh my God, I've made it in my land business, was one, once my team was able to sign everything, go through title reports, title commitments, go through offers, renegotiate on the dispo side. Like, for me, for whatever reason, when that was off my plate, I was like, whoa, this is like a real business. And the second thing, which took much longer, was once you start like creating managers in your business where there's a real hierarchy and they're managing a subset of the team for whatever division, texting or acquisition managers. And once that manager also starts hiring for you, it's like this perpetual motion machine that just never stops. And it's so beautiful. It's one thing to like delegate tasks, but to delegate some level of managing and leadership that's when it all clicks, man. That's when you're like, wow, this is bona fide. And it sounds like you're partially there, and honestly, probably there's still, I'm sure, more room to grow. But the fact that you have your EA that's managing and auditing the textures, it starts to feel like a real business. Before I hit on the questions that you had, I wanted just to whet everyone's palate, and you did a really good job. You shared some KPIs from your business for the last month, which I appreciate you being such an open book. So I just want to hit on a couple of those for the group here. So in the last month, this was for April, right? Or last rolling 30 days.
So let me just share my screen again. So this particular KPI is, well, it was designed for me to track my new acquisition manager's commission. So it was all the time that he's been with us.
Okay.
And this is the majority of the deals that we're doing in April and May. We have about 9 deals. And I think realistically, if we apply like 80% finalized profit on this number, we get about, I think, 30,000 profit per deal.
Okay.
And we get 4 to 5 deals a month. So that's kind of what we're running, kind of the output right now. The input is about 4,000 to 5,000 texts a day on business days.
So I see in the last month, 213 new leads from the texting efforts. 152 convos. So that what you're saying with the convos is out of the 213, you connected with 152 at some point in that month.
Correct. We get about 70% connect rate.
Okay, 70% connect rate. The 152 connects converted to 63 hot leads. 54 offers were made. That's a really, like, honestly, kudos to you for having such a high offer rate for the number of hot leads. That's not an easy thing to do. That's a pretty healthy conversion that you have there. Way better than most by a mile. 14 contracts signed, 8 signed contracts, and then about 300K profit added in terms of the pipeline. You know what I'll say here, just a couple of things that I'll chime in on just from what I see from these KPIs. You're doing 4,000 to 5,000 texts a day. Your lead number in terms of new leads in the CRM certainly could be higher. From that, I don't know how strict you guys are with the qualifications. With that kind of texting output, 300 leads would be kind of a good benchmark, and you could potentially even get a little bit higher than that. Your connect rate, again, having a high connect rate is extremely challenging. And most months we float somewhere around there, 70 to 75%, and it's not good. Like, I think there's room for improvement on our side. So it's something that we've been working on. I haven't necessarily cracked the code. But if you can get that reliably, and this is probably where like a lead manager comes into the 80s, 85%, and some people claim 90. I've never seen that in my business, but obviously you're going to do way more deals by virtue of that. Your guys' hot leads to offers is almost as good as you could possibly get. I would love to see all of them having offers, but of course that doesn't happen. More contracts sent. You could definitely be sending more contracts based off the number of verbal offers made. Now, we don't send contracts necessarily when someone says yes. We kind of send contracts when someone doesn't really tell us no. And it's putting the ball in their court. It's kind of like a sign of good faith. Hey, we're serious about this. And I want to just remove any friction from getting deals done with us. Our conversion is probably lower than most, like 14 to 8 converted signed is really good. So you're going to have a much lower conversion. But I think having, like, what I've found is when we send more contracts, we just do more deals. It's just that simple. And even with the drop in efficiency, there's probably another deal or two you might be able to eke out of that. And sometimes it's like, we sent a contract. They weren't necessarily ready for it in the textbook definition. They weren't asking for it. But we said, you know what, we're going to share this with you. We'll walk them through the contract. We have a task to call them the next day. They ghost us. We have a task to call them the next day again. They ghost us. And then randomly on a Sunday, they just sign the contract and send it back to us. You know, I want to create that kind of situation where that's possible, at least. And then, 8 contracts a month off of 4,000 to 5,000 texts is really good. There's probably like another, like I said, 1 to 3 contracts you could eke out of that. I think kind of the upper echelon of what's possible, especially for the kinds of deals that you're doing with that text volume, is 12 to 13 signed contracts a month is kind of the top end of what I've seen. And then your guys' pipeline profit is great. So really good KPIs all in all, but there's just some feedback there.
When you said a moment ago about 300 leads, are you talking about per month?
Yeah, per month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did send a lot more contracts sent. This KPI is manually tracked, and I think some of the contracts got signed, and we DQ the property after agent visit or LPV, something like that. So they didn't show up in our KPI. This is some numbers are underestimated, but the leads are real. I think so. I don't know if you remember. I think it was during this month. I asked you a question during one of the group coaching calls. How do we capture more high value leads, including Subdivide and stuff like that? And you said you have to open up your lead funnel. So that's what happened in May. There was a drastic increase.
Nice.
And we got overwhelmed right away.
Yeah. Well, what I will say is 1 AM, if they're good, if they're at the top of their game, with an intake manager, can handle 250 leads or so, like with an intake manager. On their own, maybe 150, high hundreds. So yeah, you're going to run into overwhelming your AM right now without a lead intake person. So that's probably the next hire in your business, and we can hit on that. Again, I would also, with your AM though, I would play with trying to solve for a higher conversation rate. Now, I don't have the secret on it, to be honest. It's something that I'm trying to figure out myself. A couple of the things that we're doing, obviously, faster speed to lead. That's a really easy one. The next one is we've got our kind of 14-day follow-up cadence that we do to engage a lead that's manual. We don't always hit it. We drop the ball. That's just the honest truth. It's a hard thing to hit.
Yeah.
But when we do hit it, we do get a higher pickup rate. So trying to make sure that we're sticking with that. And then we've been adding in these RVM drip campaigns. So through Follow Up Boss, there's just like a tag that we add that sets the series of zaps that go out. And we're getting like a 15 to 20% response rates on those RVMs. Of course, there's risk there. So, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. So yeah, those are some of the things that we've been playing with to get a higher answer rate, TBD, and what the results are. Our math looks similar to you, and it's probably one of the most important things on my plate right now. The next thing, I'll answer your question about the intake manager, and what I'm working on might solve some of this pickup rate problem. So I've got kind of a weird setup. I don't have a textbook intake manager setup. It's fractured. So I've got a person that looks like an intake manager, but they don't call. So they're not making outbound calls, but they're managing our CRM. They are sending out manual texts and emails. They're making sure all the action plans are being triggered correctly, stages are updated correctly, tagging the acquisition managers when things get missed or when they need to circle back. They also go through and review the offers that they made and cross-reference to what they think it should be. When a new lead comes in, they do all of the underwriting, all of the due diligence. They're pretty damn thorough with it. So it's kind of like a comper meets intake manager. But what I am actually doing this month is we're bringing in 2 cold callers, and a lot of their time is going to be split to cold calling our CRM. We've got a couple thousand seller leads in there. And so I think that's going to have a pretty big impact on answer rate as well. And so what we'll probably do is delegate some of that 14-day cadence to them. So maybe after the 5th day, now the cold caller is stepping in, they're managing it, running it through that 14-day cadence. And then they're going to manage all of like the dead leads, the countered offer, wrong offer, cold leads, warm leads, all that stuff. Hot leads will still remain on the AM's plate. And what's cool about that cold calling setup, again, this is all being done by my team. I haven't talked to these people. I haven't put a job listing up. They came up with a comp plan. It's like, it's very exciting. It makes me very, very happy. But anyways, questions on that?
Okay, so when I think about like a lead manager, he's basically the appointment setter, right? Yep. I just don't have an idea about like US based lead manager compensation.
Yeah.
I've tried hiring a lot of international salespeople into this into my previous AM roles, and it just never worked out. And I'm not gonna try again hiring an international lead manager. I just like it's not a culture fit in my organization. Have you tried hiring US based lead manager before, or have you seen other people who's really successful at that kind of position?
Yeah, dude, it's a great question. And the reason I haven't, I'll tell you right now, it's kind of like a bit of an oxymoron. Before I answer that, what I will say is most overseas people are going to be terrible for this role. It's the first time a seller's interfacing with you. So if you've got a great US based AM, but then they have to go through someone that's not good on the phone, there's a huge opportunity cost there.
Yeah.
There are great overseas AMs and intake people. So they do exist. It's just really hard to find them. Really fucking hard to find them. What I would recommend if you do think overseas, think South Africa and think Egypt. Those are two areas that people aren't really hiring from, that there's a lot of opportunity there. And in particular, South Africa, lovely accent. Everyone loves a South African accent, and a lot more familiarity with like Western norms. So, and honestly, like the pay is maybe a little bit more than the Philippines, but not a far cry. Like you can find someone great at $8 to $10 an hour. Now, I haven't hired that role from there, but I've hired other roles from both places. I've had a lot of success. The reason that I haven't hired a US based intake manager is pretty quickly the comp starts to look like an AM. Yes, the percentage comp will be different, but the base salary has to be somewhat competitive in my opinion. So it starts to look like $25,000 or $30,000 base, which at that point you can hire a US based AM. They're going to get a couple points less than a US based AM, but what I've done is I've just built a bigger AM team because compensation starts to look pretty similar. So I don't really know how to tackle that problem. And maybe you could find a commission only person or someone that's wants to do it at a lower hourly. But in America, if you're paying someone $15 an hour, I just don't know what kind of candidate you're finding. So I don't know what you pay your AM, but it's probably a similar comp plan to what I just mentioned there, right? In terms of base salary.
Yeah, no, that's correct. So with your intake team structure, it's just basically a bunch of AM taking ownership of full cycle deals from the first call to the last call when the deal gets purchased, correct?
Yeah, so it's that, and then they almost have almost like an EA sitting underneath them, which is like our quasi intake manager that's doing a lot of the legwork. But in terms of picking up the phone, it's only them. Now we're going to see what happens with this cold call team I'm building out. And again, yeah, you're right. Most of these sales dynamics is appointment setter and then it's closer. I'm a little bit worried about getting these overseas people on the phone. So my thinking is, if you think about the chunks of time, let me take time off the back end from them, which is like follow-ups and cold leads and working that old pipeline, and let them dial there and then shore up time so I can have a great AM on that first touch. I think that's higher value. I mean, we'll see. I haven't done it yet. So maybe I'm going to fall flat in my face, but you can take time from somewhere. And I think that there's more value on the front end that could be eroded if you have the wrong person there. So I'm going to take the time for the back end. Okay. But yeah, it's a conundrum, dude. It is a conundrum. But what I will say is maybe you've been jaded hiring overseas, but there are this great talent you can find. It's just quite difficult.
Yeah, or I can just send a message in LIA and get it LIM.
Yeah. Well, so let me actually bring that up. So this is also an option, and this is the intern model. Now you're going to have high churn. You're probably only going to get 12 months out of someone, maybe a little bit more. Maybe they graduate to a full-time role. But if you can pair, hey, you're going to get paid. I'm going to teach you a lot of stuff, and you're going to be an intern with no base salary, and then you get points on deals. You could find someone. The risk is, though, if they have no base salary, how much time are they allocating? And then are you starting to hurt your speed to lead because they're not full time? So
yeah,
still tricky.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about compensation. I think like AM is one of those roles that's worth every dollar that you pay.
But if you're going to pay $30,000 and a few points on deals, it's like, why not just bring on another AM?
That's
so
not.
It starts to become a tricky dynamic to answer. But anyways, I would just look at your AM's role as it stands today. And then where's like the lower value fluff that's eating up too much time that we can pass off to a lower value role and still keep them on the front lines, if that makes sense. And so
Yeah.
I would just have your AM do a time audit for a couple of days and just like, yeah, where's your time going, dude? And see if you can buy back some time that way.
No,
But
I
yeah,
think
I've done it in kind of a non-traditional sense. It is different than what you'd read in the textbook. But to be honest, I don't know anyone with a US-based intake manager personally.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question I have about is that you said, when you send more contracts, you end up getting more deals. Are you sending more contract even though you don't have verbal agreements with seller on the phone?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming those deals are the deals where you just know your bottom line number. You just know the max purchase price you can do, but the seller said, I'm not so sure. Right. So instead of just following up, you actually send a contract and say something for you to consider, and we'll have a deal if you decide to sign. Is that something? Is that what
Yeah. Yeah, roughly. And so like when we send those contracts too, like if we haven't agreed on price, I still frame it as this might not be the final number, but like let's at least get this in front of you. We can review it together. And what happens is like, okay, so with objections with sellers, a lot of times you never even know what the objection is and it never gets handled. So it's just like the seller ghosts you or doesn't sign. What I want to do is I want to force the matter to get the objection to bubble up to the surface. So like a seller might not give you their number, but when I send them a contract and we walk through it together, they say, I can't do it at this price. Okay, cool. Then what price? Or we start to figure out, yeah, I don't like the fact that this is going to take 120 days. Oh, so that was the objection. But when we never get it to bubble up, it's like I don't have the opportunity to solve for it. And so I just find that it just forces the matter, like expedites time. Just at the, for example, at the midpoint of this month, at the middle of May, this is old data at this point, but just the middle of May, we had already sent 25 contracts. We'll probably send, I'd say 60 contracts or so this month. Now we're not reckless with it. Like my team's gotten pretty good at reading the signs. We're not super reckless with it. But when it comes with sellers, I'm really just looking for, did they not tell me no? Like if they didn't freak out and say screw off and hang up on me, or they didn't blatantly say I would never do that, or no, there's something there. And oftentimes we don't get a clear yes when we make offers. We kind of have to dance around it.
I see.
Yeah. So going through your stats, those are the like two main points of focus just from those KPIs: higher pickup rate and then more contracts. Now it's not going to be linear, right? Like if you're getting whatever 50% of your contracts signed that are set, that number is going to go way down, and every contract you send in excess of that's going to have a really low conversion, but you're still doing more deals.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Understood. Yeah. Are you still using Google Form to sign out contract? How's your AM?
We do it manual. We send it. Yeah, my team just edits it inside the doc that we have and then pops it in the sign now and sends it. Could we do a Zap with Google Form? Yeah. But we haven't. I mean, it's kind of like the Ryland thing with the one custom field. Dude, there's so many things in my business. People would be like, why are you doing it like that? Like, there's a better way. Like I'm not perfect by any means.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If I have question about automation, you're probably not the guy.
The worst guy to ask, dude. The worst guy. I know how to use Google Workspace, and that's pretty much it. So yeah.
Well, if you're doing 25 contracts month to day, I think you're fine. I don't think that.
Hey, let me say those were 20. Yeah, those were just sent. But yeah, we want to get to 25 signed, so that's going to take a lot more contracts sent. So maybe I will end up doing something like that. But some of these contracts are particular. Like we do weird extended cash closes or owner finance stuff, and I don't know how well the automation would work for some of that stuff. One of the things that we've been doing recently, I'll just give a little free sauce for everyone on this call. We've been doing these extended cash close pitches opposed to just a double close pitch. And for whatever reason, our take rate is much higher on it. And so we kind of bake in this really long due diligence period with the ability to market. And we do have intentions of cash closing on it. So like the math makes sense for a cash close. It's not like I'm buying at 85 cents on the dollar and I have to double close. So we're like building it out like it was a cash flip number, but we're getting, dude, in some cases, I'm getting a year on these contracts. And all of our big 6-figure double closes this year have had that format. So anyway, some of the contracts start to get a little bit weird to automate.
They are those cash close contract? Do they have attorney in fact, or are they just having marketing clauses that allow
Yeah, just a marketing clause. Yeah, just a marketing clause. Which honestly, we get like no pushback from people that with realtors and title companies. Like maybe once a year we have problems with that marketing clause.
Okay, so most of the double close you don't actually include attorney in fact.
Yeah, very rarely.
Because that freaks out my seller a lot.
The attorney in fact freaks out sellers.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. So for me, I'm looking for what is the lowest requirement where a title company or realtor says this works, and then I don't want to pass that off to the seller. Like when we use like crazy power of attorney contracts or the attorney in fact, it just confused folks. So we avoid that like the plague. Dude, let's go through. I got to let my dog out. Sorry, she's barking. I want to go through and flip the script with some questions that you have for me. I got to let my dog out. In the meantime, there's a question in the chat from Juan. And anyone here that wants to ask Kevin some questions, throw it in the chat. He's an open book. He brought his freaking KPIs to this call. You really can't ask for anything better than that. But Juan says, what's the biggest lesson a bad deal ever taught you? You want to share?
That is a really good question. I know a lot of people boast about they never lost money on a deal. I lost money on a number of deals. One of the earliest deal I lost money on was this is actually in Costilla County. It's really hard to lose money on Costilla County, but what happened was I bought a property that has steep terrain. It's really steep when you go and check it out in person, but on a satellite map, it doesn't look that steep. And it's full of trees. And so Google Earth Pro, even if I turn on the terrain feature, it doesn't look that steep on the picture or on computer. But when you visit in person, it look really steep. I bought the property sight unseen. It was a $4,000 buy. And I think I ended up wholesaling the property for $3,000. Didn't lose a lot of money, but it was a big learning opportunity because after then, I told myself and my team that we're not going to buy any property sight unseen. Someone has to go see the property before we close on it or before we put money on the table. And that person doesn't have to be the agent. It can be a drone photographer. It can be a soil scientist. It can be anyone who can take picture on the property and report it back. So, a lot of scenarios where agents refuse to visit the property in person before we close on it. We usually hire drone photography and just take listing grade photos on the property, and we'll just send those photos to the agent. An agent can give us a evaluation of the property value. And the good news is that it only costs $100 to $200 for those drone photographies. And that's a really good insurance against any catastrophic kind of valuation drop between in-person visit versus just satellite photos. So Sumner, I was just talking about how I lost money on my first experience losing money on a deal.
Oh, how much did you lose?
I think it's $1,000 to $2,000. It was a SDCR subdivision in Costilla County.
Oh, I'm well familiar.
It was steep. It was steep. It was a really steep property. And Google Earth Pro, when there's a bunch of trees on the property, it doesn't detect the slope as well.
Yeah.
So when we checked out in person, it was like this. It was a cliff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, I've been, I think the most I've ever lost is somewhere similar to there, a few $1,000s on a deal. I've probably had, I don't know, 6 of those deals in my career, and then maybe a couple that like we just made a couple $100 on when we thought we were going to make tens of thousands. But pretty much all of it has baked down to not getting boots on the ground to the property before we closed. Like that's without fail, that's been it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like stuff that someone, in the last year just dumped a bunch of junk on it, and it hasn't registered on the satellite maps or things like that.
Yeah.
Actually, on that Land Insights call that I was just on, we just went through the slope scrub that we're releasing, which is free inside the platform. It's going to be out in the next couple of weeks, call it 2 to 3 weeks. It's really, really freaking good. And we back tested it against the only other slope scrub that exists out there today. And it is a far cry more accurate. It's insane, the accuracy of this thing. Now, like you mentioned with the tree cover, there's still some weird stuff out there that you can get duped on. But I find that, like, without fail, pretty much everyone's deals that end up sucking, usually topo has everything to do with it. And sometimes it's not always crazy topo. It's just like, oh, there's an embankment running along the length of the frontage, or just, weird stuff like that. Topo's probably the ultimate deal killer. Dude, let's unless there's other things that you want to share about your business, do you want to flip the script and start asking me questions?
Yeah, one of the things I'm really impressed about your KPI is that you have really high net profit per deal.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, are those averages being dragged up by some just lucky shots, or are you just having consistently 50K per deal in your pipeline, like, for the most part? Like, what kind of problems did you have to solve to get to that profit margin per deal?
Yeah. Really, it's kind of like the Pareto principle. Like, every month, maybe 20% of our deals are, I wouldn't say we got lucky per se, because it's a very consistent routine, but they bring in the majority of the revenue. So, like, I'll go through the contracts that we sent today, and you'll get kind of a sense of what, like, these kind of average deals look like. And then I'll share one that, like, is, the stuff that really brings home the bacon. So from today, one contract that was sent, that's a double close. It's a buy at 45, double close around 75, low 80s. We had another one that's a double close at 42.5, sell at 70. These are both 120-day closes. Actually, sorry, one's 120 days and the other one is 210 days. $500 EMD on both of those. We had one this morning. It's a buy at 2,000, sell at 10,000. And then we have another one that's a extended cash close at 22.3K, sell at 45,000. So it's a lot of deals that look like that, right? I would say, like, the average deal is like a buy at 30, sell at, double close at high 50s, or sell at like 60, 65, something like that. And then every month we get somewhere around like 2 to 3 of these bangers, right? And one that we actually just got an offer on. This is a banger of a deal. This was a cash close, and we bought it at 36.157.88, so about $36,000. And we got an offer at $180,000. So every month we get a couple of those. Now the ROI on that's big, but we get a $75,000, $100,000 deal, and most months we get like 2 to 3 of those, I would say. So yeah, and I think the reason that we're able to get those deals, one, we're working in the right markets where we're exposed to them. But I think it really comes down to how my team on the texting side qualifies those without over qualifying them, so we still get them into our CRM, and then how my AM team handles those deals. So yeah.
Okay. Are those big deals being qualified by offer over text, or you have a specific process to let them into your system and let AM see them?
Yeah. So if it has any hint of value add to it, we're typically not qualifying via price. Same vein, if it's over $250,000, we're not qualifying via price either. There's only so many deals in there that are good deals that meet those criteria. And again, if someone's responding to our text and they're somewhat conversational, like, there's something there, right? One of the things that I do with my AM team is we do with my AM team, we do 7 calls a week in our land business. How the hell do we do 7 calls a week? Well, we have 5 calls. We have 1 call every day. That's an all hands call. We've got a big all hands call on Tuesday that I run. And then we have a AM training call on Thursdays. So one of the things that we did yesterday is we did like some deal audits. We went and looked at deals from this year that were on the upper echelon, and then started to kind of pull out what were the common threads here. So my AM team can start recognizing these patterns. Same thing with our texters. Like a lot of this stuff is pattern recognition. So we had this deal. We've sold all of them but one. It was a 4-way subdivide in Michigan. We bought it at 120, and then all said and done, I think we'll get about 240,000 in total. So a 6-figure deal. It's like a $2,000 survey. We got it surveyed in like 3 days. It was crazy. It was the cheapest, fastest survey I've ever had. So what's interesting is this one did get an offer. So my team did give a range offer. Our texters still make mistakes. So there's times where they shouldn't give offers and they still do, et cetera. What's really interesting here though is that we gave a really big offer on this guy. It was like 100. It was like 60,000 to like 130,000, and he didn't deny the offer. So that's interesting. But the reason that this was it was marked as a hot lead coming into our CRM was for one reason alone. He sent us a long paragraph text. So it was like 3 or 4 sentences. So it wasn't a paragraph, but he sent us a long text. In the text, he said a few really interesting things. I'll try to go off the top of my head of what he said, but it was something along the lines of, I'm winding down for the weekend. What's on my mind is drinking old fashions on my front porch and relaxing. I just finished 200 like tax submissions this week or something like that. After this weekend, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call you after lunch on Monday morning. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Okay, what stands out about that text? Is there anything that stands out about that text? Why that would make that a hot lead for you?
He made it very specific that he wanted to talk to you. Yeah. To have a conversation, right?
Yeah. So there's a few layers to it. So first on, I always think about effort with sellers. It's stupid, but writing that out took effort. Like he took the time to do that. He's busy. So I know he's got a problem. He's got a need that we can solve. The guy's busy. He doesn't want to list the property himself. He's overworked. So that goes a long way. He sprinkled in a few LOLs in the text, which I just thought were like an interesting rapport building thing. Like he was kind of buddy with us in a weird way. And then he was putting the ball in his court. He said, I'll call you on Monday. And he was specific about what time you'd call us. You don't see that with every seller, right? So it's those little signals that we get where we just treat those opportunities like gold. And of course, on top of it, it was a good property too. So I think we're good at catching those signals. And there's a lot of those little signals that happen in text and in your CRM. And ultimately, like the results of your acquisition process is just, where are you spending your time? Where's your team spending your time? Because you don't have a lead problem. You can generate a lot of leads and you're getting deals and you're doing well. But I guarantee you every single month, you guys are probably missing 1 or 2 big freaking deals. And same for me, I'm probably missing 6 a month or more. And it's just my team's not spending the time in the right places. So we need to find those patterns that stand out to us.
Okay. Yeah. Not killing lead by overqualifying.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Far too many people do that via text. And that's why I do. A lot of people's texting KPIs are so all over the map. Some people it's 1 contract per 10,000 texts. Some people it's like 30,000 texts for a contract.
Yeah.
And yeah. Overqualifying.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. So, one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I want to get your take on, is that I've never done any subdivide whatsoever, and I don't even know how to recognize one. I just know growth frontage equals potential for subdivide, but I have no idea how to pull those off. And would it be a distraction for me to learn the basics of subdivide and go through some training? Like at which point you want to uncover new disposition strategies to value add on those deals?
Yeah. Okay. Really good question. And no, I think it's very timely for where you're at. The mistake that people make is they obviously put the cart in front of the horse. They haven't built a flipping business. And they want to start doing this stuff. Obviously, that's a mistake. But that's not you. The second thing that I don't like is people start trying to reorientate their marketing. So it's like, this, do not change what you're doing. And I know right now you're already getting exposed to these deals. Again, you just probably don't recognize the patterns yet. So really all you got to do is learn the patterns and pass it off to your team. All I would be, how much do you know about subdividing? Do you know anything about it, or pretty
I don't know
green to it?
anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all I would be looking for are exemption-based subdivides. So that's the game I'm playing. I'm trying to just do plat exempt stuff.
Okay.
Platting is possible, but dude, like for your first few, it's just that's where you get distracted. That's where I think it can hurt your flipping operation. So out of all the markets that you're working in, I'm sure you don't have to give them away, but I'm sure there's a few states that you're really killing it in that you're like, you've got a good foothold on. Would you say that's true?
What do you mean by foothold? Like agent, title company
Yeah,
connections?
you're vertically integrated. You know the market well. You've had success there. It's a proven state.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
A few states. Yeah, we go
Yeah.
nationwide. There's a few states.
So everyone's kind of got those bread and butter spots that they're just working well for them. So what I would do is I would just take a weekend and just go and read the subdivide regulations for those states or those counties and just learn them. Right? There's going to be kind of an overarching for the state, and then there will be some differences within counties, but it usually follows the state rules for the most part. So just go learn what that is. And it's really simple. Like you can pick this up pretty quickly. You just search online, you'll find this giant PDF. Hint, the shorter the PDF, the easier the regulations are. So if you find a PDF at 600 pages, off the rip, it's probably not a great market to subdivide it. So the simpler the better. If it's a one pager, you're freaking golden. I would just do like Command F and just search the word exemption in there and just go figure out what the exemptions are. And so usually it looks something like a size exemption or a quantity exemption. Sometimes it's both. So it's like, hey, if you're subdividing properties where the child property is bigger than 2.5 acres, you can do 4 cuts without requiring platting or whatever it is. Okay, cool. So then we learn what that is. And the second thing is we just start looking for the patterns that match for what makes a good subdivided property. That's the easiest part. Road frontage. When I'm creating child properties, I typically want them to have at least 250 feet of road frontage per child lot. So you can do the math, like you're going to need a good amount of road frontage. If you have 2-sided, 3-sided road frontage, that's even better because now we've got multiple options of where we can cut it. I look for properties that are flat, like no more than like 20% slope, like flatter the better for sure. It's okay if you have one that's sloped and you make one ugly property, but the other 3 are good. That's okay. But I don't want a mountain for a whole property. Minimal wetlands, flood zone, again, probably less than 20, 30% flood zones, wetlands. And that's it. The next thing is I want to go and look for what is the arbitrage here. So some markets have really compressed spreads on subdivides. So take like a Texas, for example. Texas, I mean, to do a 10-acre exemption subdivide, pretty much without fail, you've got to be buying at 70, 75 cents on the dollar for those flips, unless it's at a huge scale, because there's just not enough spread there. The markets have become compressed for 10 acres. This other place where I did that subdivide, dude, I bought that property probably at 90, 95 cents on the dollar. But there was huge arbitrage for subdivides there because there's just a lack of inventory. So I'm looking at what's in demand, what kind of like child properties are people buying? Are they buying 5s, 10s, 20s, whatever it may be? And then what's that spread? Is it a healthy spread? And starting to know those spreads. Like you can go into any county in Texas, well, most counties in Texas, and I can pretty much tell you for certain if it's outside of a city, pretty much every 10 acre is going to trade at like 10 to 12,000 an acre. Like you just start to know these things, right? And so I think it's good to get a depth of understanding for those few states that you're working in. What I did for my AM team, and you can do it for your texting team, I just built out a Google Doc. You can put it in Notion with a bunch of screenshots of textbook looking subdivided properties and just like match these patterns when you see them. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. Showing them some patterns that they can identify.
Yeah.
So they don't overqualify the lead. So they don't make it to the system.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Are you doing I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, ultimately, the pattern recognition, the visual stuff is the easiest part. Yeah. The only thing that takes legwork is understanding the regulations. And honestly, again, you could do that in a weekend. I wouldn't start looking for resources right now, but I do it like when the time calls. But finding a good surveyor is worth its weight in gold. So that is a make or break, because like when I try to do subdivides in Arizona, I was getting a lot of quotes from surveyors that were going to take 6 months, and they were charging over 5 figures for like a survey on a 40 acre. I've also found surveyors in different states that are $2,000. So like it's all over the map. Yeah.
I was going to say that are you doing any different acquisition process when you get on the phone with those sellers when you know there's a subdivide potential? Like, what are the key differences between a flip versus a
Yeah.
subdivide? I imagine it's like you got to have a long contract period.
Yeah, it's like the actual contracting is super variable. There's times when it's not a long close period. There's times where it is, and we have to go through due diligence and feasibility. There's times where the only way we can make the math work is by doing a note wrap and owner financing it from them. There's times where you might need a long close because you're going to get bank financing. But really, all of that just comes down to price point. Because, dude, you can get a banger subdivide that you buy at $30,000. Like, they're not always expensive deals. And so I'm not going to shift my acquisition process if it's value add or not. Usually price is the deciding factor. And usually subdivides are expensive because they're large properties. I think that like once you start getting into the multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, what I do is I kind of like zoom out on my timeline. So we think about inside of LIA, we think about lead comes in, first call, pre-qualify, have a quick combo, second call, make the offer. That's got to be within 48 hours or less. Those rules could certainly change. If you're dealing with a $500,000 property, I need to make sure that when I make an offer to them, it's really relevant for what's important. And that it could be different stuff, dude. For some of these people, they just want to know you have the money and you can fulfill on it or whatever, or that you can work with their family. So I don't try to make offers where I don't have all the facts on what their why is or what the problem is. And so that means that sometimes it takes a while to get that offer out. So yeah, that would be like the biggest difference, I would say. And then being able to look at deals three-dimensionally. Like you can double close a subdivide, you can owner finance a subdivide, you can find private money to fund it, you can go through banks, you could owner finance it. And usually these deals aren't vanilla with how you have to take them down. And that's true for most really big deals just in general. So price point, I think once you start getting past like, a property where you're going to be offering in the $250,000 to $300,000 range as an offer, that process starts to break a little bit, looks a little different.
So you're only doing exemption-based subdivide. You're not interested by entitlement opportunity that pops up in a pipeline.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes and no. I've had my hand bitten a few times trying to do these bigger, more complex deals. And so I don't know if it's purely ignorance that I'll get over one day and I'll become more proficient at it, or maybe it's just not for me. I don't know. Like, I really don't like the one entitlement that I did. I hated everything about that process. It was bureaucratic. It was like political. You're relying on so many other third parties.
Yeah.
And you're outlaying a ton of capital. And they're slow deals. It's like it takes a while before you can even bring anything to market. So I don't know if it's for me, man, to be totally honest. But it's a gradient, like most things. Like there are states where doing a platted subdivide is really not that much harder. You call like the county commissioner, you have 2 conversations, and then you're good. And there's other ones where you have to go to like town hall meetings and stuff. So it's all over the map. I would say I'm probably less game to do paper lot entitlements, but I am open to doing bigger platted subdivides when the deal calls for it. But so far, it hasn't called my name yet.
Yeah, that does seem a lot more complicated. I have a question in regards to county research and lead generation related. So, how many? What's the percentage of new markets that you're texting versus following up?
Yeah, it's a good question. So right now we're trying to grow our marketing output or input rather. So I would say it's probably divvied up close to 50-50 right now, maybe 60-40, 60 new, 40 repeats. If you're kind of more in like a set it and forget it stage where you're not really trying to push marketing, what I've seen for myself and for others is probably like 70-30, 80-20. majority going to new markets. Especially if you're just running a mail operation, I think you've got to be really careful. Like for a mail operation, if someone's at 20,000 letters a month and they want to double their marketing, I think it's a fool's errand to go to 40,000 mailers a month, because we're going to have to push to so many new markets, and that's where all of the risk is. So if I wanted to double my marketing output, I would just bolt on another marketing channel to my efforts currently. So it does change on the channel, but yeah, right now, I mean, I think that the goal for us, like when we combine the cold calling efforts, the texting, and then like the little bit of like sniper mail campaigns that we're doing, I think getting to like 300 to 500,000 individual owners that we're reaching out to per month is the goal. That's going to take a lot of new markets to get there. So that's our breakdown right now. But I would prefer just to be rinsing and repeating in all the markets that have already proven themselves, to be honest.
Yeah. So when you follow up with the existing market, what's the cadence you like to follow up with, and what do you do differently compared to like when you just first reach out? Do you just send the same text and just hoping that?
Yeah, no, it's a little bit different. So like within launch control, we do two main like follow-up cadences using like their 30-day cadence. We're really aggressive with using drips. Like we use drips like no one's business. So it's always kind of working in the background for us with those drips. Our messaging does look different, and we're always putting in new messaging templates to launch control. And I think that's important. I'm always like, I don't know what my team's cadence is necessarily, but pretty much every time I look at leads in our CRM, we're testing new copy, and I'm never sending the same thing to the same lead. And sometimes some copy works really well, some doesn't. When it comes to the mail side, I think it is dependent on the size of the market. If it's a smaller data set, I think quarterly is a pretty fair cadence. If it's a bigger data set with a lot of data, you could go as aggressive as a month. I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about this, but I know a handful of people that either make almost all of their revenue or a lot of their revenue from a single market, or their whole entire business just relies on like one county. And they're usually hitting it monthly. Like, I don't Michael Bull. Michael Bull's got a little town that he's worked in. It's just a town. It's not even a county, but it's got probably 20,000 pieces of records in it. So there's a lot of vacant land. And every year he makes 150, 200 grand, and he just hits that place every month, just like clockwork. So I wouldn't go any more active than that. Really what I'm trying to build, and honestly, no one's done this that I'm aware of, and because it's a hard problem to tackle, and just most people aren't at this scale, but I'm trying to build a like perfectly vertically integrated marketing cadence or funnel that like works without my involvement, where we are maximizing our list penetration. And one thing too, we do cold emails as well, but we're maximizing our list penetration. I'm getting the most bang for my buck with my data, and we're mixing in channels. So maybe first one, for example, is text. Then we do a 30-day cadence with the follow-up. Then we move that over to cold call. Then we move that over to cold email. Then we snipe off the direct mail pieces. And what happens there is that like when someone's inactive, like this is the same thing with leads in your CRM. Like when you've been calling someone for a month and they've ghosted you, it's actually kind of stupid to continue calling them. Like that channel, they're proven to be not like unreceptive to that channel.
Yeah.
And so then when I send them a letter, they respond to us like that. And so I think that same thing plays out with their marketing, but I don't know anyone that's built that out perfectly. Yeah. Where it's like a literal perfect conveyor belt, and that's the best case scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you go nationwide or multiple states, it's very hard to
super hard
marketing channels.
We've been toying with a crazy idea, and this wouldn't be in the near term, but we're like, what if we just built that whole entire feature set inside of Land Insights, where all like it would become a marketing tool, and all of those cadences are not like the work isn't automated per se, but the steps are automated. So there's no discretion involved. There's no crazy tracking. It's just like, hey, your cold calls are due today, and then you dial out of the tool and so on and so forth. So
All right.
maybe, maybe down the line, who knows? I just don't know if there's enough TAM for that. Like that's a really hard problem to solve. And like if there's a couple thousand potential users, is that a problem that's worth solving just for land investors?
Yeah.
Yeah. What else you got for me, man? These are good questions.
No, speaking of land insights, we heavily rely on it for county research. I was trying to nudge my comper to use it for comping, and he said one of the things he missed about Zillow was it's got more thumbnail pictures on the listings.
Got
And
it.
if you can nudge your tech team to figure out how to use artificial intelligence to scrub out from the listing description or the feature photo of the property, whether or not it's farmland versus rural rec, we will fully integrate with LI. All about comping if you guys can figure that out.
That's yeah, man, that's a tough nut to crack. I've thought a lot about that. Like, could you have machine learning to some extent that reads the listing description, finds outlier oddities about the property, goes through the photos as well. Not an easy thing to solve for, but the thing that we're working on right now with the comping tool, or that will like kind of be like the next iteration, is deeper value add comping. Like really deep, like insanely deep, not just like, oh, if you subdivided it's worth this much, like everything. Where it takes all of the research away from your plate. So I think that's the next problem that we want to solve. But yeah, I would love it to be able to automatically read those outliers and remove them, but no solution in sight just yet. But he should still be using the comping tool. Let's be honest. He can go and click on the listing and go, open it in the tab and go look at the Zillow listing. It saves us so much time, dude. It's a game changer.
Yeah. I think the main headache he's experiencing is there are a lot of listings to click around. Without seeing the picture of the listing, he didn't know which listing is worth investigating because he's comping so many properties every day. He's looking at too many comps. Wow. But anyways,
one thing I'll say about that, just for his sake, price doesn't lie. Like usually those odd properties that you're going to learn something about through the photo have a price that reflects whatever that oddity is, either low or high. So when I use it, or my team uses it, I start with proximity, right? We look at recency as well. We talk about inside of LIA, the 3-part comping framework: proximity, features, recency. We obviously can't solve for features on the front end right now. So the way that we sort that is just low to high on those sold prices. And it's usually a 1-to-1 correlation for the most part.
So you're looking at price patterns and consistency of pricing amongst the comps to make sure that you're not.
I'll share my screen. Maybe I can find a good example. 1 sec. Let me just grab a little market for us, and we can go through it here together. So
I'm going to pull up Michael Bowles market so everyone can.
Yeah, I'll give it away. I'm sure he would love that.
Under 50K a year.
Yeah. I love that. I love thinking about like markets that have proven themselves, and they're almost like little annuities in your business that just continue to pay dividends. Like I just love that idea.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen. My computer's being bogged down right now. I got a million tabs open currently. So, okay, here's this property here. This is the comp value on it through the AI. So you go through in this sold comp list. Now you can go and set whatever you want, right? You could do a comp radius. Like this property's 8 acres. So I'll just trim it down. I'll say, hey, just like show me like the 6 to 9 acres or something like that. So I'll trim it down a little bit. First thing is proximity. And like proximity really is the goated filter, because what we know is if you're in close proximity, you probably have the same features. It's pretty damn likely. So this property here, 0.15 miles away. Let me see if I can just share my entire screen so I can pull up the tab. Let's see, share screen. Yeah, I'm going to share this entire window. All right. So you can see my screen, Kevin?
Yeah, I can see it.
So this property, 6.3 acres. I don't know, maybe it's got improvements on it. Let's go see, but it's pretty much adjacent to ours. Okay, yeah, sure enough, it does have improvements. So I would just DQ that. This one, 2.54 miles away. Da, 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 da. So anyways, these all look like they have improvements here, and I'll show you why that is. I would go over to price, and then we can just sort low to high. And it's like this stuff here, like watch. This one's at 600K. Bet it has improvements on it. Let's see. Yeah, sure enough, it has improvements. We looked at that 425, 3.5 million. Well, yeah, for damn sure this has improvements, right? And on the flip side, if we go look at the low ball stuff, this one sold at 22,000. What's the story here? Is it landlocked? Is agriculture residential? The photo doesn't really tell me. This would just be a hard deal to comp no matter what. But I'm essentially certain that this is an outlier for some reason. I'm assuming it's access, but maybe not. Who knows? So anyways, I just go through it like that. I start with proximity, then I sort low to high, weed out the crap. And then like, let's say this one at 75,000. I have a feeling that this is probably going to be relevant. Let's see. 6.44. I would want to make sure this is in the same subdivision. So this is in a subdivision. You can see the CC&Rs. So there's no HOA, but there are CC&Rs. I don't know. Maybe it's a POA. I would probably add this one into my manual comps. I would view it on the map too. Okay, so it's pretty far from ours. It's a little bit concerning. It's an entirely different subdivision. But anyways, that's how I go about it. So we just cherry pick the hand selected ones. And honestly, this AI comp, I don't rely on it solely, but it's a really good benchmark. So when I'm looking at 106, which is what this tool thinks, I'm pretty freaking weary when I see the 3.5, the 615K, 425. Like I know for a high level of certainty, those are going to be outliers, and I just spot check. Same thing on the low end. So he can kind of get the same bang for his buck if he wants. And again, you and I probably comp in a pretty similar fashion. And this has dropped our comp time by about 2/3. So even if there's a little bit of legwork there and a learning curve, I think it's so valuable to be using. The other thing is your texters should definitely be using this if they're not. Are they?
Yeah, I love the distance stats on those comps. That's something that I can't get from other platform. That's where I spend most of the time trying to figure out how close they are. Because from Land ID, I can't exactly like from Land ID transition to Zillow, it's such a painful process.
Oh my God.
It just can't find the property. I just have to find a reference point. Is it close to highway? Is it close to a mining operation? Like I have to find a satellite.
Yeah, dude. I would push your team to be using it. I just don't see any way where it's slower than what they're doing.
Yeah. We are already paying for it, so there's no.
Yeah, I was about to say, bro, it's a sunk cost. Like you should maximize what you're using it for. Same thing for listing photos. Are you guys editing your listing photos in there?
That is actually something that we wanted to experiment. I just heard about it. You guys mentioning it in the Discord, so we're gonna give that a try.
So yeah, I'll show you an example here. We were just talking about that in the Discord yesterday. Maybe you saw that message, but dude, like the original value add are photos. Like you really can't beat good photos. So my process is I give the drone photo SOP from LIA to our realtors. I have them take the photos based off of that. They submit them to us. We edit the photos. So this is the kind of stuff that we create inside of Land Insights. And in my opinion, it's just so goddamn good. Like these are just great listing photos, and it pays dividends. Now, I don't have like a perfect, like true statistical kind of breakdown on the difference, but I do have a lot of anecdotes because we do have realtors that are slow to get us the listings. So we list with like placeholder photos, and then we add these there, and it's just a game changer. But I'm always thinking about like, it's kind of like the sunk cost thing, like with using the comping tool in Land Insights. Like, okay, you're already having a realtor add photos, take photos. You already have Land Insights or whatever. It doesn't matter, whatever tool someone's using. Like, take the 30 minutes to edit these photos. It just goes such a long way. The other thing that we think about too is the layout of the photos. So we think about telling a full story in the first 5. This isn't actually the best example of it. I'd like to see a little more diversity here. Because most people don't do this. Most people aren't going through and scrolling. So you've got to give like the full picture. So like if, for example, if this had a well on it, one of the photos would be like the well casing. If this had a shed on it, I would show that. If it was in proximity to a river, I would have a really high drone photo that shows the property in the proximity to the river. So you're trying to tell that full story.
Okay. So your backend team, your office, your office team works on preparing and editing the drone photos.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is not done by agent because
No.
it's really
Oh
hard.
no. Whoa, yeah. No. Dude, I would say more times than not, the agent makes the photos worse. Like it's so hit and miss, and it's really hard to get them to do it in a timely fashion. So take the photos and that's it. We'll handle it from there. We also will like ask them to write a listing description, and it's usually garbage. So then we'll go write a listing description too. If you've ever seen that listing description, that's like calling all builders. Here's the dream op. Like screw that. Like that does not work. So we write it ourselves.
So a lot of your agents are just a body that can show the
Yeah,
property.
dude, 100%. What I always tell my team is there's like a weird like hierarchy that usually happens with property owner and the agent. Usually the agent's at the top. They're the resource, they're guiding. For us, it's the inverse. They're our contractor. They work for us, they follow our process, and they're bolting into a system. And we tell them that on the front end in different words. Now that scares some people off, and that's perfect. It's a decision wall where we can weed out the bad ones. And then for the other ones, they love it because it's like, we're going to sell the property faster than you've ever sold it for. And we're going to make your life so easy. All you got to do, take the photos, show up to the listing appointments, and follow up with the calls that you get. And then we track those KPIs from them. We send out a bi-weekly KPI sheet that they fill out.
Yeah. No, this is fantastic. I think we lack consistency in how great the listing materials are, and having an SOP and having a process to vet out those agents help a lot.
Yeah, dude. And look, I never want to give the impression to anyone here that somehow like we are 10 for 10, like we always do everything perfectly. We certainly don't, but we manage this stuff. So for example, on my Tuesday call this week, we went through all of our, I don't know, 30 listings or something like that. And sure enough, the ones that have been up for 90, 120 days had the worst photos. It's like, guys, what are we doing here? So it still requires management and oversight. We still make mistakes, but there's a process we try to stick to. And again, it's just high ROI to have good photos. It goes such a long way. So yeah, that's my rant about good photos. And dude, most land investors don't pay it any attention. Like they forget about the fact that this is also an internet marketing game. Like you've got to drive eyeballs. So the two stats that we look at on Zillow, views, and views are reflective of the quality of our listing, mainly the cover photo. So if I'm not getting views, it's almost always because of a marketing problem. And then I look at saves. Now saves is a value problem. So the listing was pretty enough to get a click, but they didn't see value, and that's usually reflective of a price too high. And that's another area that a lot of land investors misstep is they try to shoot the moon and maximize value. They forget that we typically can't do that. And even if they know that, oftentimes they still start too high, and we still make that mistake too. So like they use like the realtor's OPV, they take it as gospel, and they start at a crazy high price. Then it takes them 30 days to adjust. Maybe you could have sold that property in that period. And I also find that these listing platforms, they kind of slap you on the wrist. Like if you start with low engagement, even if you fix things, I don't think you get the same juice that you get if you start hot out of the gate. So I like that momentum. I don't know their algorithm, but anecdotally, that's what I've seen.
Okay. No, that's a great take. Yeah, views and saves on Zillow.
Yeah.
No,
So
great.
you want to shoot for, obviously depends on the market for views, but you should be shooting for at least 50 views a day. If it's a hot market, it'll be like 100 plus per day. And then the golden metric is a 10% save ratio. So 10% of those views need to translate to saves. And if it's not, it's more times than not, it's mispriced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, so I got one last question for you. So when I look back at my KPI, a lot of the deals I've been doing are kind of like buy for 1,000 to 2,000 per acre, selling for 3,000 to 4,000 per acre. And I looked at so many markets that I targeted. I just had no luck. and this was back in when I was mailing a lot of those market. I just had no luck with expensive markets, like 5 to 10,000 per acre. Um, is there any rhyme or reasons for that, or am I just the weird one that couldn't expensive properties?
Yeah. Okay. That's a great question. I mean, it doesn't really matter on price per acre per se. It's the total price is where we start to see a breakdown. Because I don't know the size of these properties. So on average, or like what was like the median price as a list price for that kind of data? 250,000, 300K,
I think
200K.
I think for the most part they are between 50 to 80,000 retail.
Oh, okay. That's substantially lower than I would think. So there's two sides of this coin. And it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what's happening here. But we can say for sure it's not the first one. The first side of the coin is as you start getting into higher price properties, they're just harder to acquire. Obviously, there's more value there. More people want them. The sellers are savvier. They probably don't need the money as much. Like just harder deals to acquire. So it just takes way more marketing. Like the first subdivide I ever got, and I was so stupid. I like tried to like reorientate my marketing to go after subdivides exclusively. I think it took me like 50,000 letters to get that deal. And because I was just mailing 60 cents on the dollar for hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of the properties I was going after. So that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just takes way more marketing. But what I would think that's happening here is a lot of times these high priced properties are high priced for a reason. These are in demand markets. And usually these ultra in demand markets, everyone already knows. So let me share my screen here. I know you got time coming up, so I won't go off the rails here. And if you guys like this stuff that you're watching at home, give this a like. Throw it a little like. So it's funny when people join LIA, the two states everyone wants to start in. Any guesses?
Texas and North Carolina.
Yeah, surprisingly not Texas. And it would make sense, but I think people don't work in Texas because the non-disclosure scares them. North Carolina and South Carolina. And we can see just on the heat map here that, yeah, these are hot states. I mean, look at the difference between North Carolina, South Carolina versus Virginia. The heat map is night and day different. The problem is everyone knows those are hot states. Everyone. You don't even have to be like real estate savvy to know that the Southeast is booming right now. I don't know. It's probably one of the hottest regions for real estate in the entire country currently. 10 years ago, a lot of those towns were nothing burgers, and now everyone wants to live there. They're booming. So I call these obvious hot markets. And look, you can get deals in obvious hot markets, but it's a lot harder because we're competing with obviously other land investors. We're competing with agents. Agents in these savvy markets, dude, they're going outbound to get listings. They're aggressive. They're cold calling. They're sending mail. They're essentially doing what we're doing to get listings. You've got developers that are going outbound. We've got new home builders that build like one-off homes that are going outbound. You've got house wholesalers that are either accidentally marketing to land or deliberately marketing to land because it's too hard to acquire houses in these markets. So I feel like a lot of the arbitrage has kind of been eroded because everyone knows it's just too obvious. And like this really at the top of the funnel for land, it's an arbitrage of information. Am I working at places that have high yield because other people aren't working there, or most people don't think to work there, yet there still is demand? And then it's an arbitrage of information around value because land is hard to value. So I find that my worst campaigns, when I go and look back, I'm like, yeah, obviously everyone wants to work there. Like I used to send a lot of mail to the outskirts of Dallas. It's a bloodbath in these counties, dude. Have you ever marketed to these places?
My worst area has by far very consistently been right outside Metro.
Yep. You get smoked. And this also is kind of a continuation of, again, it's just arbitrage. Like we're arbitraging information. This is a continuation of what every guru in the land space tells people to do. You join a guru's program, they don't give you any schematic for selecting markets. What do they say? They say, pick a market that's 1 to 3 hours outside of the metropolitan area. That's what everyone says. So take any metro, I can guarantee you there's land investors working on the outskirts. And again, these are usually higher price point markets. So I think that might be part of it. Other than that, maybe your offers weren't correct. You know what I mean? Like there's a misdiagnosis on value. I find that lower value, like not lower value markets, but it would be really cool to do a study on this. lower price per acre markets tend to be more homogenous. Would you agree with me?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know why that is. I mean, maybe because maybe the geography is usually more homogenous. Those markets. My favorite markets to work in are exactly what you said. Those $1,000 an acre markets, my favorite. When I'm buying a 40 for $40,000, $50,000, we crush it in those markets. And so I think that there's maybe just less noise there for pricing. So, dude, I don't really know what it is, but at 50 to 80,000 as a list price, they're not too high. It's probably falling into those other buckets that I mentioned. And so then what am I doing, right? And you have Land Insight, so you're already savvy to this. I'm looking for the non-obvious high demand market. I want to work in those kinds of places where if I told my mom that I'm working in some podunk county in Wisconsin, I want her to say, why would anyone buy land there? That's when I know I'm in a good market. But when I tell my mom I'm working in Raleigh, North Carolina, it's like, yeah, so is everyone. It's booming out there, right, Sumner? Um, and so I'm looking for those places that you just would never expect. There's so much demand for land, and those exist all over the U.S. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna tell my VA to scrub out all the markets that Redfin isn't available.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would stay away from anything that's like in the zeitgeist. Like, I mean, you can still do like these markets, but again, just understand what you're getting yourself into, like the Floridas, the Carolinas, and when I'm like 1 to 3 hours outside of a metro, I'm concerned. Dude,
Yeah.
I love the markets where I'm like, there's not a city for like 12 hours. And there's so many little nuggets buried out here. And when
Mm.
I look at LIA members, it's really cool to have great data from LIA members for just standard flips. Okay, so not subdivides. I've seen people land freaking massive subdivides or value add deals inside of these big areas. For example, Benji inside of LIA?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just landed in a very hot market. He just landed a $6.5 million acquisition. So like you can land monster deals. I think it's actually in Huntsville, Alabama. You can land monster value add deals. But when I'm just talking about standard flips, the data shows me it's always in the weirdest places. Like we've got Anthony Reese. Anthony Reese landed this monster deal, multiple six-figure deal, in a place where I was like, Anthony, why did you even market here to begin with? This is the strangest market. It was like this bizarre little subdivision in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the country. So I think there's a correlation there. And again, I don't have like hard science on it, but from what I've seen, and I would say it's a bit of the same in my business as well. Although, counterpoint, I just did land two massive deals in North Carolina. So again, you can still get good deals there, it's just harder.
Yeah. Okay, great point. Hey, Sumner, this has been a blast. I learned a lot, and thank you for doing those one-on-one calls.
Yeah, of course, man. No, it's been a treat. I'm super proud of you. It's been really, really cool to see how far you've grown, and it's not even been a year, which is crazy. I do have one request though. You got to come out to the Scottsdale event if you're not.
I wish I could. Wife's due. My first baby is due this July, so
Oh, damn,
I
man.
was told that I have to stay 30 miles within
Okay,
radius, 30 miles radius from her at all
that's
times.
fair. Okay, that's understandable, dude. That's exciting, man. That's super exciting.
Yeah,
Um,
it's one of the motivation and stress factor that pushed me to hire.
yeah,
I think I made 4 hires in the last 7 months, so it's very motivating to
yeah,
get more
dude.
time for
I
myself.
would say the dads that I've seen inside of LIA that joined when they weren't parents and then became parents, their business always blew up. Like I think, in particular, the feeling the responsibility as a dad or a parent in general, like I just think it adds a whole nother layer of motivation and why you're doing this. So yeah, I'm sure it's going to be rocket fuel for you. Well, we'll have to get you at the next event, whenever that is, maybe next year. Um, Also, Kevin, I was going to ask, dude. I hope you don't mind me asking. How old are you?
Uh, I'm 29 right now.
29. Okay, cool. Man, it's a crazy time that we live in. Like the fact that so many people inside of LIA aren't even 30 years old. We've got a guy who lives in the land house. Everyone calls him Grom. He just turned 21. He joined LIA when he was either 19 or early 20s. That will do $500,000 in profit in his first year. It's just like, it's just a wild time that we live in, that we can do what we do, and it doesn't matter what age you are, where
Yeah.
you live in the country, where you live in the world. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
doing this from Bali, Indonesia, so it's a cool time. Anyways, man, I don't want to keep you any longer. Kevin, it's been a treat, man. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope our paths cross soon. We get to hang out.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity. Hopefully we will see you in person soon.
Absolutely, man. All right. Cheers. Take care.
All right.
Kevin.
Bye.